back to Simon's Shed. It's time for a loco review. We haven't done this for a while. Here it is. I suppose technically it's a train rather than a loco, but we'll take a look. It's obviously a Graham Farish DMU, and it fills a huge hole on my layout, which is modern passenger trains. So the item number is 371432A. It's a class 170/5, and it's the 2-car DMU in London Midland livery. So I've got a fair few preserved steam and diesel locos, and started my modern freight collection with the big long container train, but yeah, up until now not really had anything at all in the way of modern passenger trains that would actually run through, plausibly run through Kidderminster. And I've got to be honest, it's been a struggle to find one, or to find any, and I really didn't want to buy this, but I'll go more into that later. Let's have a look. So this is practically floating away, so I assume this is an unpowered car. Very familiar sight to me. I know they're branded as West Midlands Railways now, isn't it? But I think if I wait for a West Midlands Railway release, I'll be waiting a long time. So presumably this one, yeah, is a lot heavier. And yeah, goodness me, it's like made of solid lead compared to that one. So yeah, this is clearly the driving unit. You can see the gears underneath. Looks like both bogies are driven, and possibly can't see on the camera, but the windows are sort of almost completely blacked out, and there's a lot of mechanism going on inside there. So that's the train. What else have we got? We got the usual product maintenance and care. I'll just whiz that past if you want to pause that and have a look. Already joined the collectors club. I'm in that at the moment. And we've got the warranty, service record. Yep, no need to linger on that. And now we kind of come to the reason that I didn't want to buy this. It doesn't have a DCC socket, and this is obviously the DCC chip documentation that has been fitted for me. So this was purchased from the model centre, and as I say, I really didn't want to buy this because it doesn't even have a DCC socket, and I couldn't find any decent instructions on how to do that, and there were sort of conflicting information on how difficult it was. And then I had one last look and spotted on the model centre that they do DCC fitting for this model. So for just £60, bear in mind it does need 2 DCC chips. So for just £60, I thought that was an absolute bargain, because you could easily spend that much just on the chips themselves. So good to have that. Good to have that fitted, and yeah, made it a worthwhile purchase, I think. The Class 170 Turbo Star is a DMU built by Adtrans, and a total of 139 units were built, introduced in 1999, and still with us today, operated by West Midlands Trains, Cross Country, East Midlands Railway, Transport for Wales, ScotRail and Northern Trains. All cars in a set are powered, and one bogie per coach is powered by an engine linked to a transmission, which are both located under the body, powering the train to a top speed of 100 miles an hour. Alright, let's get it on the layout. I have figured something out, which I'll tell you about now, but first of all, let's just take a moment to appreciate how good that looks. Finally got a realistic passenger train at Kidderminster Station. Does look superb. So yeah, what I've discovered is obviously when I put it on the track and have run it in, there are no lights on either carriage, so I'm thinking, why are there 2 DCC chips required? And then I realised there actually aren't 2 DCC chips required. What I think it is TMC's website perhaps doesn't allow them to adjust the price for putting in a DCC fitting. So because this is quite a big job and you have to custom wire a chip into the motorised unit, they've just added 2 lots of sort of DCC fitting. So that's how they've accounted for the cost, whereas actually in reality there is only 1 chip, and it's obviously in the motorised unit, which is fair enough. That makes a lot more sense now in terms of the cost, because I think they'd be making a loss if it was if there were actually 2 chips in there. So that's explained that mystery. So after running in, I've found the loco is pretty smooth, a little bit noisy, certainly not the quietest runner I've got, but very reliable over points and so on. It's never cut out, and yeah, runs really well. Haulage performance is not really an issue with this. It's not really going to work out how many coaches it can pull, because it only ever needs to pull this one. So yeah, and it's certainly strong enough to do that, and it does look good running up and down the Kidderminster main line and through the station. Overall, it does look fantastic, and she is a good and reliable runner. The only problem is I could just do with another one now to run in the other direction, but we'll see how the funds go. So this is the slowest crawl I could get it to do. That's obviously with the Gauge Master chip that's been wired in. Suspect we'd get a slower crawl if a lens chip had been used, but this is the chip they use, so that's the one in the loco. So not the slowest crawl in the world, but not too bad. And let's do a top speed run. This is what she looks like. Not too unrealistic. It's pretty good. Again, a little bit noisy, but yeah, a great addition to the fleet overall, I think. So let's have a nice close look at the details, starting with the coupling distance. Slightly larger gap than I would have liked between the 2 units, and unfortunately the Rapido couplers are fixed. They're not, they're the sort of spring pocket types rather than the interchangeable NEM pockets, which is a bit disappointing because it makes it harder to close that gap up. But the metal exhaust pipes on the end are nicely represented. A nice sort of metallic looking finish. And looking at the loco itself, we got from this side plenty of underframe detail. We got some nicely applied livery details, some very tiny stickers and so on, warning signs, which are incredibly well printed and applied and very crisp and clear. Really impressed with the livery and the way the tiny little printed details are executed. Glazing is all flush, and so are the doors, which is good to see. Not so good on the end. We've got a big sort of orange blob of a rectangle where the sort of destination sign is supposed to be. That's supposed to be behind the glass and ideally would be illuminated. And even more disappointing, the lights are not lights, they're just little blobs of paint. So this model doesn't have any lights at all. Roof detail is good. We've got some nice Nice sort of air conditioning unit detail and so on the top. Some of the vents are more obviously moulded, but a lot of it does look like it's sort of separately fitted, and the grills are nice and so on. And underneath you can see the underframe detail doesn't continue, it's sort of very thin, it doesn't continue all the way underneath the body, which doesn't really bother me, to be honest, because when it's running you don't get to see that anyway, so it doesn't make any difference to me. But I suppose it would have been nice if it carried on. And you can see in this shot, this is obviously the power car. We got the bogies. Unfortunately the gears are exposed, so any little bits are going to get picked up by those gears and go into the mechanism. But overall, really does capture the look of the Class 170, and a bit of a mixed bag, but the livery is fantastic. In conclusion then, I do find it difficult to recommend this really, unless you really want specifically want a Class 170 in one of the liveries they offer. There are more up-to-date locos available. Farish's Class 150 has been updated with, you know, things, even sound fitted options. There's a Class 220 as well. But yeah, if you do specifically want a Class 170, then yeah, you ain't got much choice. I'd say the negative points, the main negative point is the lack of DCC socket and the lack of lights. Could really do with an update really, I think, this loco, and I'm sure it will get one at some point. I suppose the good point is the price kind of reflects that, in as much as it's 179 RRP, whereas the Class 150s I think are more like £250 for a 2-car unit and £350 for a sound fitted version. So 180 is, you wouldn't call it cheap, but compared to the other N-gauge DMUs on the market, it's at the lower end of that sort of scale. So yeah, missing some features, but the price kind of reflects that. Good points, it's a very reliable runner and runs smoothly, and the livery looks fantastic. The detail on the livery, sort of printing the tiny little details, is very, very good, and it's overall a very good representation of a Class 170. So it looks right at home at Kidderminster Station on my layout. So yeah, overall I am happy with it, but definitely room for improvement in the future. And I'm sure now I've bought this and done the review, they will immediately release an updated version in West Midlands Railway livery. But yeah, it's bound to happen. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers!